Good morning. My name is Liz Gleadle, and welcome to your new morning routine with Win the Morning. I've been doing this morning routine since 2015, and it was really just designed to get me mentally and physiologically ready to go to attack the day and to make the most out of my practices. But what I realized is that it applies to anybody trying to do high performance in their field. So this morning's morning routine, once you get it done, it should take you 15 to 20 minutes. It's not supposed to take up your whole morning. It's really supposed to get you to the thing that you care about. So morning routine is 5 items. 1, drinking salt water lime. 2, doing 90 seconds of movement. 3, taking a cold shower. And I like to say that my other skill besides throwing a javelin very far is convincing people to take cold showers. The 4th item is journaling, and the 5th one is a short 1-minute meditation. So we're going to go through all of these today. I'm going to give you a bunch of fun facts, a bunch of easier ways to integrate this into your morning routine so that you're not blocked by just strange little habits that may accidentally stop you from getting the most out of your day. So first things first, we will be drinking saltwater lime. Saltwater lime is a big glass of water. I say about a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt, but that's the absolute max. The salt should be relative to your palate. It should taste good. If it's too salty, your body doesn't want that much salt. There's a different optimal amount for every person. And then lastly, a lime. So I like to do about a half a lime because I really enjoy lime, but again, it should be to your palate's taste. I like to say it should taste like a virgin margarita. So it is really refreshing, which I really enjoy. And if you enjoy it, you're more likely to do something. So cheers. All right, so why are we drinking saltwater lime first thing in the morning? So my general rule, first of all, is I'm not trying to take away your coffee. I love coffee, but I like to say have the equivalent amount of water that you're going to have volume of caffeine after. Everything works better when you're hydrated. We've been sleeping for 8 hours, maybe 9, maybe 10, and we really want to try and boost our system's function by having this substrate, water, which we are mostly made up of, and just kind of boosting our blood pressure and allowing the chemical reaction in our bodies to happen most optimally. So when we are well hydrated, we can better handle caffeine, just like we can better handle alcohol, just like we can better handle any drug. So caffeine is a drug, and you have to make sure that you are in a great position to be able to handle it so that you can harness its power if you are someone who likes to drink coffee or caffeine. So when we drink water, we are just hydrating. And I first started doing this because I realized that I would try and wake up for my 6 a.m. practices back in 2011 when I was trying to make my first Olympics. And I'd try and drink water and it would feel like rocks were hitting my stomach. And it was awful. And someone suggested to me that I start drinking saltwater lime, because lemon water was way too acidic for me. It really hurt my teeth, and I was just trying to find a way to hydrate that was enjoyable. So I started drinking saltwater lime, and it was easy. It was just easy for me to get it in. It felt good, and it really kind of got the ball rolling for everything else. So 1, saltwater lime just helps you hydrate. It's basically natural Gatorade. It has a little bit of electrolytes and minerals to help draw the water into your body and help get the water in instead of just having it pass through when you're not kind of ready yet for a large quantity of food, or your body's just not ready to digest yet because you just woke up. The second part of this is the lime and increasing acidity in your stomach. So, lots of people drink lemon water in the morning because a lemon has a pH of 2.4, which is very acidic. pH scale runs from 0 to 14, 7 being water, and the lemon is a 2.4. A lime is a 3.6. So if you find lemon to be too harsh or you have sensitive teeth, lime is a great alternative. So what we're doing is 1, we are adding more acid to our stomachs, increasing the acidity of our stomach and making it easier for us to digest. Lime also actually stimulates hydrochloric acid production in your stomach as well, which is great because now you're creating an acidic environment so that when you do take in food, you can metabolize it optimally by having this nice acidic environment. So the other thing that people are often intrigued by is why sea salt? Why Himalayan salt? And really, it doesn't matter what kind of salt you use. I personally prefer Himalayan, but more than anything, just don't use table salt. Table salt or iodized salt has been iodized because it was treated with bromide to bleach it to make it cosmetically lighter. And bromide makes the human body leach iodine. So then you add iodized salt back in. So it's kind of this ridiculous cycle that you don't need. So just choosing a good sea salt. I personally like Himalayan sea salt. You can buy it in large quantities. So that's kind of the best way to go for me. So that was the second thing, getting your stomach acidity up. boosting your ability to have a better metabolism, better digestion. Lastly, and most interestingly for you high performance geeks, a saltwater lime helps boost your circadian rhythm cycle, because when we take in water, when we start hydrating, we give our body these signals that it's daytime, we have electrolytes and minerals, not a just quick sip of water in the middle of the night. It boosts our blood pressure because we're getting hydrated, which then turns our kidneys on, which start functioning. And then on top of our kidneys sit our adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands start turning on from the electrolytes and minerals from the lime and the salt. And adrenal glands are responsible for over 50 hormones in your body, but most notably adrenaline and cortisol. And people often think of adrenaline and cortisol. Adrenaline as fight or flight, cortisol as a stress hormone that's often a little out of whack and a little overreactive, but they're actually very, very important because they're a part of your sleep-wake cycle. Adrenaline is focus, cortisol is alertness. And this is really, really important because we want to be focused and alert when we first wake up. And if you're the kind of person who gets up, kind of puts around, makes a coffee, and then sits down and then starts working, you haven't really harnessed your circadian rhythm, you haven't turned things on, and you haven't really taken advantage of all these hormones that can be at your disposal first thing in the morning. So what we are doing with saltwater lime, with movement, and with the cold shower is we are boosting these wakefulness hormones straight away in the morning so we can harness the most mental energy and be super productive and be very focused on the task at hand that we care about. So, cheers again. Enjoy your saltwater lime. Feel free to sip away. Oh, it's good. All right. Thing number 2, movement. So movement is something, again, I had to start doing because I had these really early practices for a number of years, and it wasn't show up at 6 a.m. and start warming up. It was be ready to throw a javelin as hard as possible at 6 in the morning, which is very difficult because throwing a javelin is kind of like running as fast as you can, stopping yourself with your left leg. It's kind of like a car crash, but controlled, and then creating a human slingshot with your right side to launch an object from your body. So you can imagine that doing a really good warm up is very important. And I remember when I'd first start warming up, I'd get to the gym, I'd start doing my warm up, and I would start having this hot, sticky sweat feeling on my body, and I was just, oh, this is awful. And then I'd go through practice feeling like I couldn't quite focus. And what I realized this is it is your lymphatic system that is actively draining when you first start working out. So you work out early in the morning and you will probably feel this. Maybe your face is a bit puffy, maybe your joints are a bit puffy, but once you start getting moving, it kind of flushes out. And I realized that if I did some exercise before I went to practice, just a short bit, it would flush out my lymphatic system faster, and then I would show up to practice fresh and activated. So it's a quick little hack. It doesn't take very long because your lymphatic system is a passive system. It is unlike your circulatory system, which has, it's an active system. It has a heart pumping blood. It has arteries wrapped in muscles pushing the blood out towards your extremities. It has veins with regurg valves to make sure the blood doesn't go backwards. It's a very active system. The lymphatic system is only flushed out when we move, when we contract our muscles, because it's basically just tubing, and when we contract our muscles, it flushes it back to the lymphatic organs and eventually back into the circulatory system to be cleaned out. So your lymphatic system will drain on its own. It does every single day, but the more you move around, the quicker you can flush it out and the quicker you can feel better. The other part of moving around in the morning is that we are creating a hormone cascade. And this hormone cascade turns on your metabolism, and it basically, again, taking advantage of your circadian rhythm, signals to the body that it's time to wake up. So it boosts your metabolism earlier in the morning and gets things going. And you don't actually need to do that much exercise to stimulate this. So very interesting study showed that 90 seconds of exercise stimulates 70 to 80% of a receptor called GLUT4 on the muscle group being used. GLUT4 picks up glycogen, which is sugar. So basically you're turning on the little molecules that want sugar to come to them. But these GLUT4 molecules are all over our body. They're on our brain, they're on our liver, they're on our fat cells, and they're on anything that uses sugar or glycogen. So how our body works is we partition that fuel based on our needs. And if we've been sleeping all night, obviously our muscular metabolism, the GLUT4 cells on our muscles, are not that turned on because they're not in use. You're sleeping. It's on your fat, it's on your brain, it's on your liver, it's on all the things that are focused on renewal. So when we wake up and we do a little bit of exercise, we're basically switching our body's metabolism to work mode. We are no longer in rest mode. And it's really important so that, again, the body and the brain work together. And when we signal to our body, when we use our body to signal to our brain that we're awake, our brain will work better. So it's not just for athletes, it's for anybody trying to wake up. So the other part of this is when we start moving, when we start activating our metabolism, again, exercise stimulates adrenaline and cortisol, focus and alertness. And this is a safety mechanism. And I think anybody who's been for a run, starts putting one foot in front of the other when they're going for a run, and they're a little out of it at first, but then you're running down your street and you know exactly where your foot's going to go on the pavement. You know how to time it so you can pass by that car just perfectly. You avoid the person on the other side of the street. And when you start being hyper aware of your environment, this is adrenaline and cortisol when it's functioning really well. It's not overloaded. It's just an alert feeling in your body. And it doesn't matter whether you're about to go for a run or whether you do 90 seconds of exercise and then you harness those hormones to do the work that matters to you the most so that you can be focused on your environment. So it's a little hack to make your brain focus on something when you're not necessarily moving through an environment. So with that, we're just going to do 90 seconds of exercise together. That way we can get moving and then you can feel it kind of come over you. A lot of people always think that these minimum effective doses, maybe they're not going to do anything for me. It's only 90 seconds. What can that possibly do? But doing these small things, it really is, a lot of the time it's Pareto's Law. 20% of the work gives you 80% of the results. And every single item that we have in this morning routine should make you feel noticeably different. And it should not take up a lot of your time. So here we go. I've got a timer going. You just move your chair to the side, and all we're going to do is an air squat. So I just like to squat down, give a little kick to the side. And I like to get my arms moving, and really contract your muscles. Don't just kind of passively come up. Give it a good push. And it doesn't matter what exercise you choose. You could choose air squats. You could choose push-ups against a wall. You could do burpees if you're really feeling crazy, although I don't recommend it because your motor function isn't really optimized when you first wake up, and it's much safer just to do something like an air squat. Excellent. So, the main thing is, though, you could go for a walk around the block. It doesn't matter if you really want to just turn on a song and dance in your kitchen. Any kind of movement is great. That's really kind of the main thing. Getting your body just a little bit active so you can boost the circadian rhythm, boost your metabolism, turn on the adrenaline and cortisol, and get rid of that lymphatic system buildup from overnight. Good job. I believe we're about a minute in. Keep going. My timer just went blank on me. Excellent. Almost there. 10 more seconds. And shake out your hands. Crack your knuckles if you're like me. And you are done. You should be a little bit out of breath. People often do HIIT workouts and they think I'm in such great shape, but we're often doing HIIT workouts of, 20 seconds to a minute repetitions of exercises, and a minute and a half is more than we often think. People often say, you're an Olympian, shouldn't you be not out of breath? And I like to joke that I run 25 meters and then I stop, and then I wait 5 minutes and I do it all over again. I'm not much of a cardiovascular athlete, but this definitely gets me going every single morning. Maybe take another sip of that saltwater lime. All right, so I love to get people to notice now, how does your brain feel as opposed to 2 minutes ago? And it should be pretty noticeable. You should feel different. You should feel more alert. And it was really just a small amount of exercise to get you to this place, which is really lovely. All right, on to the third item, which is the cold shower. I have been doing ice baths since I was 15. It's just something we do in track and field. Coach says get in and you just say okay. But the reason we do ice baths in track and field is that we basically want to flush the lactic acid filled blood back to our hearts, and all the debris that we've been doing from our workouts back to our hearts to be oxygenated at the lungs and then cleaned out and then sending back fresh oxygenated blood. That's why we do it in track and field. But I started doing cold showers more frequently because I realized that it had a very significant impact on my brain, both psychologically and with a huge hormonal boost. It also has a huge impact on your immune system. So psychologically, so many people think that cold showers are, one, painful, and they're not. They're uncomfortable. And it's really important, and anytime we're trying to do something difficult, that we say, okay, this is a challenge. It's not pain, it's just, it's being uncomfortable. And in anything we want to do in life, whether it's trying to win a medal at the Olympics, or, trying a new job, working on a new project, starting a new business, being in a new relationship, moving to a new city, it doesn't matter. You better get comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's the only way we change, and that's the only way we have new experiences. So I love this concept of starting our day with something difficult and something that actually stimulates our system as well, because it forces us to be physiologically calm in a difficult circumstance. And it kind of sets your operating system for the day, which is super important. Because, if we start our day and we're saying, look at this challenge that I just overcame within the first 5-10 minutes of waking up, that really kind of does something to your brain, because we have this beautiful blank slate when we first wake up in the morning. And when we give ourselves, the news, or look at our phone, or look at our social media, before we've even had our own thoughts, before we've even determined what is important to us, it creates a totally different trajectory for our day. So psychologically, this is an amazing tool. What I really love it, and the thing that convinced me to truly start doing cold showers, was a study that showed that 20 seconds submerged in 4 degrees Celsius water created a 200% boost in noradrenaline and a very similar boost in dopamine. So adrenaline, again, focus, and dopamine is a reward hormone. It's also a motivational hormone. So I thought to myself, 20 seconds is a very small price to pay to get that much of a boost in the hormones that make me feel focused and like I want to do something and like I want a challenge. And obviously then I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to fill my bathtub with party ice every day. That would be kind of one of those limiting factors that just randomly stops you from doing something. So I thought, okay, how long would I have to take for a cold shower to feel significantly different? What is the minimum effective dose? And obviously, the longer you go in cold, the larger the boost of hormones that you will get. And if you've ever heard of the Wim Hof method, he's phenomenal and obviously really, really interesting. Lots of research going on there. Highly recommend looking at your cheat sheet and checking out his podcast and his website. He often suggests doing 15 seconds, then 30, then 45, and then working up more and more to eventually you're at 5 minutes. But what I really found is that I don't feel the real benefits until about 1 minute. And I better feel really good after taking a cold shower, after convincing myself to take a cold shower. And I like to think that we can do any human can do anything for about a minute. We can endure. So I like to say, you can do it. It's only 1 minute. The other part of this is that you do not have to get your hair wet. You can if you want. The top of your head will cool you very, very quickly. You will get a stronger effect. But the back of the neck right here is the most important part, because this is where your thyroid is. And your thyroid is responsible for producing hormones to bring you back to a homeostatic temperature. You get too hot, thyroid sends out hormones, makes you start sweating, cools you back down. You get too cold, thyroid sends out hormones, you start heating yourself up by the mitochondria within your fat actually being stimulated and generating heat. So we have 2 types of fat in our body. We have brown fat, which is the only kind of fat that babies have, and then we have white fat, which is something we accrue throughout our lifetime and have as adults. White fat can actually be converted to brown fat by exposing yourself to cold. It becomes more metabolically active, mitochondria are generated within, and it becomes more dense. So it's a very healthy type of fat to have. And this is very different than shivering. Shivering is another way that we heat up, but it's a very ineffective way, or it's something that's really a last resort. But we can heat ourselves up. And so what we're doing is we are making ourselves more metabolically flexible. The more we expose ourselves to cold, the more we can handle being in colder temperatures. And it also makes us more resilient in general to different kinds of stress. If we can basically put ourselves in a difficult situation and then bring ourselves back to normal, without any kind of external help, this is a really, really great tool for anything, whether you're stressed out, whether you're cold, whether you're hot, whether you're sick, whether you're stressed about something else physically. So there's 2 types of stress. We have the umbrella of stress, and then we have distress and eustress. And distress is you're tired, you're sick, you're injured. And then eustress is sauna, cold exposure, working out, meditation. They're all things that are difficult, but when we become more fit at these items, when we get better and better at them, when we experience distress, it becomes less distressful. We handle these situations better. And that is what we're doing with a cold shower. We are making ourselves more resilient so that we can better handle other challenges, other obstacles, both physiologically and mentally. So another very cool thing about cold showers, or just cold exposure in general, was a study that showed that people aged 65 plus who did a polar bear swim once per week during the winter were 70% less likely to get sick. And what this does is it actually boosts your store of immune cells. So your immune cells sit in your lymphatic system, and then when you're exposed to bacteria or virus, you basically have more immune cells to go and attack that invader. And so it boosts your immune system. It flushes out your entire lymphatic system because it basically contracts everything in your body and flushes the blood back to your heart, as well as kind of flushing your lymphatic system a little bit with those contractions. It boosts your adrenaline, it boosts your cortisol, and it kind of leaves you with this bit of this euphoric feeling. And again, the important part, get the back of the neck. If you're one of those people who likes to scooch back into the shower and then eventually get it to the back of the neck, the water will feel colder longer. If you go straight to the back of the neck, what happens is your thyroid will start kicking in, and around 40 to 50 seconds, you will notice that your water starts to feel warmer, and you'll wonder if your tap got hotter, but it didn't. It's that you have started generating your own heat. So, how to take a cold shower? Thing 1, get the back of the neck. Thing 2, how to breathe. Very important. We often kind of, as soon as we step into a cold shower, the first thing we do is go, and then the trick is from there is to try and control your breath and breathe through your nose. If you keep breathing through your mouth in this very sharp inhale, it's called a panic attack. I don't want you having one of those first thing in the morning. That sounds really unpleasant. So, important thing to note, your mouth is mainly for vocalizing and eating, and just in case of emergency breathing. Your nose is actually the true breathing organ. It is not an accident that is here on your face. When we breathe through our nose, it heats the air, it humidifies it, it cleans it, and very interestingly, it mixes it with nitric oxide in our paranasal sinuses. Nitric oxide stimulates the parasympathetic response, making us calm. So we are now doing a difficult activity that is stressful or eustressful, and we are challenging ourselves, and we are forcing ourselves to be calm in that moment, physiologically, which is very good. The other part of this is you want to breathe out for as long as possible without straining yourself. And this is because anytime we inhale, our heart rate accelerates. Anytime we exhale, our heart rate decelerates. So if you spend more time breathing out, just a regular breath in and just a nice, long, slow breath out, your heart rate will get slower and slower and slower. Again, physiologically putting you in a more relaxed state under a difficult or stressful situation. So again, you're training yourself for the day and you're making it easier for you to stay in the shower. The last part of this is how you pay attention to the experience of being cold. And my coach has one of these great sayings that's get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I love that saying. I kind of live by it quite a bit of the time because that's how you experience new things and get better at stuff. But get comfortable being uncomfortable also means pay attention to the discomfort. Do not run away from it. Learn from it. And I think we've all had that moment, we're chopping something in our kitchen and we accidentally nick our finger, or we're grating a carrot and we take off a part of our knuckle. And then we have that moment of, and we kind of panic. But then we look at it and we see that cut and we see the blood come out and we're like, oh, interesting. So that's what the inside of my finger looks like. And in that moment, you're curious. You're no longer afraid. And it's really hard to be simultaneously afraid and curious. And that's what we're doing in a cold shower. We're not standing there and going, oh, this is cold, this sucks, this is cold, this sucks. We are present. And you can do this a couple ways. One, you can simply focus on the breath and notice the way your breath changes with the cold. Count your breaths. You can count to 7 breaths. You don't have to have a timer. And you can know that your cold shower is done at 7 breaths. And if one day you want to do 8 because you feel like it, then you know you've done more. You don't necessarily need a timer to give you that external validation of time. If you are going to have a timer, make sure it's not wind chimes because you won't hear it and you'll just be waiting for it the whole time. Make it an obvious timer if you are going to do it. The other part is you could focus on the way the water runs down your back. You could focus on the way you could look at your arm and notice the way your hair picks up with your goosebumps. So you can notice the way your breath changes. All these things are part of being a part of the experience. And the wonderful thing about being in a cold shower is that it makes you so focused and you will not be thinking about anything else in your life. You want to feel like you're in a meditative state and that you are present. Trust me, the cold shower will do this for you. So if you want to give it a shot right now is a great time to pause your video and stop, go take the cold shower and come back. One question that I often get from people is, can you start hot? And yes, you can absolutely start hot. If you are cold, do not take a cold shower cold. Get yourself nice and warm. That's what we were doing the movement for. And if you need a little more, or if you need to wash your hair because, shampoo kind of works better with hot water to get a nice lather, start with the warm and then finish on the cold so that your body can heat you back up. So that is really what we're doing here. Don't forget, breathe, get the water on the back of your neck, and pay attention to the experience. It's not often that we don't run away from discomfort. So be present and be proud of yourself. So pause it, go take a break, come back. The next part is journaling. So journal is a great way to basically start your day and choose your thoughts before they are chosen for you. I like to say, do not take your phone off of the airplane mode or don't turn on your phone until you have chosen your thoughts. Do not let someone else dictate what your priorities are in your life. It's easier for us to say yes to things and to help others when we know if that fits in with our goals and with what we want to do and how we want to show up. So unless you're a first responder or you have an ailing family member that you know you absolutely need to have your phone on for, you don't need to have your phone on at night. So I like to say, just don't check your phone until you've decided how you want to think for the day. So with that, I've separated the journal into 3 separate parts. The first part is basically goal setting, but it's about retraining yourself for goals, because we often try and set a goal and then we try and set multiple goals. And we try and revamp our whole lives. And we're like, I'm going to get in great shape. I'm going to start a company. I'm going to learn German. I'm going to have a great relationship. And we get overwhelmed by all these things we have to do. And what it is essentially is that we're setting goals, but we are not setting priorities. And if you want to be a jack of all trades, this is a great way to go. You can really organize yourself to the T and try and keep yourself accountable and create little sheets where you check off all the little things you do every day. But if you want to become excellent at something, if you want to become high performance at something, that involves funneling out other stuff and saying, right now, this is what I'm working on. And these other things that I would also like to do with my life can wait until later. And it's very obvious when you're doing track and field at a high performance level that it takes up most of my life. And realistically, I cannot do javelin and become excellent at dancing. It would be really hard for me to throw well on a frequent scale if I'm constantly tired because I'm learning another skill. So we kind of have to pick and choose things in our life. And that's what we're doing here. We're setting priorities and we're thinking about, okay, how do we then remind ourselves daily that this is what we want? And what we're doing is you take a little bit of time, you write 2 to maximum 3 priorities that you want to focus on right now. You write them down and then you read them daily. And I like to write them out. I actually write them on a nice piece of paper and I use them as bookmarks. And I use it as a bookmark in my journal where I do my gratitude journaling daily and actually write that part out daily. The next part is a gratitude journal. And then lastly, we'll talk about how to prioritize your to-do list to reduce a lot of your stress and to create more productivity with 1 or 2 really simple hacks. So thing 1, priorities. A priority, again, something that's basically you are putting at the forefront of your mind. And what we are doing is we are making ourselves sensitive to the information that we want to see. And by this, I mean the world is full of information and we are not necessarily registering all of it right now. As I look at this computer screen, my brain is mainly registering this computer screen. I'm not noticing the dresser over there. I don't see the person walking by on the street through my window. I'm not focused on the plants and the window in front of me. What my brain is registering is what is important, and what I see right now is right here. And as we go throughout our lives, we take in salient pieces of information. And depending on what your mental state is or what you tell yourself is important first thing in the morning, that's what you're going to see. And we all know that when we wake up on the wrong side of the bed and we get an upsetting text message or we get too much work thrown at us first thing in the day, it kind of ruins our mood. And all we see is just things coming at us, demanding our time and attention and getting stressed out. So this is where we are choosing what we want to see. And we want to say okay, what are the things that I'm working on? What are the things I care about? And these priorities can be anything from work-related to throwing the javelin as far as possible, to having a great relationship, to just getting in shape, to really smaller goals. It could be something that you think is going to take you a month to accomplish, or like me, my big affirmation has been about performing well at the Olympics. So it could be a couple of years. But do whatever feels right to you. You could have different goals with different timelines. So when you're setting up your goals, I like to set them up in a form of an affirmation. And if you've ever done a classic affirmation, they often say it like it's already happened. And I remember the first time I created one, I felt so silly because I said it out loud and I was like, I am Olympic champion and I speak at international health and wellness conferences. And I feel like I'm lying to myself and this feels awkward. And if your affirmation feels awkward, don't do it. It needs to be set up in such a way that it feels good to say it. It feels good to say it, and it feels good inside that it might actually be within the realm of possibility. And that's really, really important. Otherwise, your brain isn't going to accept it. It's going to know you were lying to it. So what I did was I changed my affirmation and I said, I am willing to believe that I could perform on demand at the Olympics and have the best throw of my life, which is a very different affirmation because one, it relies completely on me. Other people could throw a world record and, I could have these people throw amazing throws and I could not get a medal. But if I threw my best, I would be okay with that. It would be unfortunate, but these are the things that I can control, and I feel good about that affirmation when I say it. You could also say, you could make it, a hard line. Like, I'm willing to believe that I could run 10 kilometers in under an hour. Excuse me. Or you could say, I'm willing to believe that I could be really proud of my fitness. I'm willing to believe that I could have an amazing relationship with my partner. All these things are great. You could say, I'm willing to believe I could be an organized person if your house is a mess and you feel like you're never on top of it. And you could, these are things that you think like, yeah, this is a doable thing in my future. Then you move on to the next section. You say, okay, what skills, what items do I already have that make it so that I am not starting from ground zero? And so this is basically, we've set our goal and our big priority, and that's kind of like our mountain. And then we're standing on a path and we say, okay, what do I have? What tools do I have for this journey? Do I have a backpack? Do I have trail mix? Do I have a tent? All these things that kind of say like, okay, look at all these things I already have. I've, done my fitness so I can walk for a long time. So for javelin, for example, I'd say I create my own program. I've been doing this for 17 years. I have access to amazing coaches, amazing sports psychologists. I own a javelin. I own track and field spikes. All these things are really relevant, and sometimes we discard them and discard all the work that we have done to this point. And what we want to do is we want to create basically a little list saying like, wow, look at all the work I've already done. And look, I'm not starting from ground zero. And psychologically, this is very important. The last part is basically the next best step. We're looking at that mountain, we're standing with everything that we need for this journey, and we can see some of the path. And we can see it in the distance, but it's obscured by trees. And there's a ton of fog in front of us. And we can only see a couple steps in front of us. But realistically, we do know the next best step forward. And as soon as we take that step, more steps will appear. And I think anybody who was trying to work during this pandemic truly felt that, there's just more restrictions and little workarounds that you need to constantly do, and you need to be constantly adjusting because we did not see the full path forward. And I know I had to constantly change my program and change my strategy for getting to this Olympic Games. So always ask yourself, what is the next best step? And it could be something as simple as, I need to send that email. It could be highly specific and very short term, or it could be about acquiring a new skill. So for me, for a while, my next best step was I need to have amazing shoulder mobility. And amazing shoulder mobility is just this feeling that, wow, like this feels significantly better and I've made marked improvements, and I will know it as soon as I one day read that same affirmation. I'll be like, I don't have to say one day anymore. I absolutely have great shoulder mobility. So it could be a really obvious number that you put in front of ourselves. It could be a feeling within your body. It could be a feeling that you just have in your mind. But what happens is that this section accrues more and more and more affirmations because you start building towards that larger affirmation. So my personal priority sheet has, I am willing to believe that I could throw a javelin at my best on demand at the Olympics. And then it has all the things that I had done about 2 years ago that had built to me having this great foundation. And then it went like this. It said, recover from appendicitis. I had appendicitis last summer, so that I could, get into a nice stretched out position with my stomach and I don't burst my stitches. Get great shoulder mobility, rehab Achilles tendonitis, learn how to throw lower. I used to throw insanely high. Get a hold of your mental training and your mental state so that every single practice you are repeating the same throw and not trying so hard, but just accepting the positions. And I have this huge list. And now when I wake up every day and I read my priorities, I basically see wow, look at all the work that I have done towards this greater goal. And now 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks before I compete at the Olympics, I have this incredible sense of being proud of myself and knowing that I've done all this work. And even if it doesn't work out, that I did something and I was able to manifest myself to this place where I was creating more and more and more. And anytime I created a priority or I created another thing that I could do on the list, I started seeing it in my environment. I started seeing opportunities to make it happen because every day I woke up and I said, this is what's important to me. This is where I want to see possibilities. And so you are waking yourself up to look for cues within your environment to support you. Maybe you want to run 10K and you're like, well, I'm willing to believe I could run 10K. I have runners. And then you're like, the first thing that I should do is join a running group. And then you meet people at that running group and they're like, oh, you should get a stretching routine. I can help you with that. And then the next thing is to get a stretching routine. And then, from there you're like, oh, like I really need some other type of fitness because I've sprained my ankle. So now I'm going to get on a bike and I'm going to learn how to bike. So all these things would only come with taking that next step forward. And eventually when you run that 10K, you'll look back on this priority list and you're like, wow, look at all the things I did to get here. And it's not going to feel like you just woke up one day and did it. So we are tricking our brains into seeing all the work that we're constantly doing, which makes us feel proud of ourselves and which makes us sensitive to our environment. The next part is the gratitude journaling. And with this, we are creating a positive confirmation bias for multiple things in our lives. Basically, we're creating positive confirmations for abundance, for opportunities around us, and believing that the world is full of opportunities and that we have a sense of community and belonging. And it's a way nicer way to wake up than seeing that the world is falling apart on the news, someone telling you to buy those shoes, and someone asking you to work straight away. So with this, basically positive confirmation bias is very easily explained through the example of you're thinking about buying a car or you bought a car. And then you get out on the road and you notice that car everywhere. Everybody now seems to have this car. And it's not because it has magically appeared on the road. It is because you have made yourself sensitive to seeing this car. And that's what we're doing with gratitude journaling and affirmations realistically. So the first thing is something simple and obvious. So I'm grateful for the coffee in my cup. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. But you don't stop there. You have to say why. The why is very important because you're making yourself sensitive to all the things you already have and why you enjoy them. I'm grateful for the coffee in my cup because my spouse made it for me and it makes me feel loved. I'm grateful for the roof over my head because I have spent so much time making this place into somewhere I enjoy being, and I really enjoy living in this space. It makes me calm. These are great examples of something that you may take for granted, but then you kind of you do more. You take it to the next level so that you really emotionally feel that you have so much. And then you look for things everywhere as you go through your day, like, wow, look at all these things that are just available to me. The next part is the opportunity to, and this can be done two ways. One, I'm grateful for the opportunity to, something that's a legitimate opportunity, revamp my morning routine with Liz Gleadle, who is giving me all this science about ways that I can trick my brain and my body into being alert and ready to go for the things I care about. There, opportunity. You can also go and think about something difficult in your day. Maybe you have to give a presentation and you get nervous and you're not looking forward to it. And you can say, okay, I'm grateful for the opportunity to find a way to use my physiological state to make me more calm and not just rely on my mental reserves to make myself calm during this meeting, because now I'm taking a cold shower and this is going to make me better able to control my breath and control my response to stress. So it was difficult. Now you're looking at it as an opportunity to get uncomfortable and make some changes. You can also look at it in the past and you can reframe past experiences that were difficult. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe you had to move when you didn't want to. Maybe there was an awful breakup. And we often, a lot of the time, these are very painful experiences. They sucked. And we think about them, they still kind of suck. But realistically, like if I hadn't lost that job, I wouldn't have this one. If I hadn't had to move, I wouldn't have all these friends. If I hadn't had that relationship and learned all these things, I wouldn't be a better person for it. And so when we start doing things like this, we start reframing our past. And then what it does is it tells our brain, hey, whenever there's something that's really tough or really awful, there might be something great from it in a week, in a year, in a couple years. And eventually we're going to see it. So what we're doing is we're preparing ourselves to, whenever we're up against a challenge, to spend less time worrying, to spend less time being upset about it, and to get to seeing the opportunity a little bit faster. The next one is a specific person, and you could pick your spouse, you could pick people you work with, but it's also really fun, I find, to think about a year. Think about who were you friends with in 2010? And, maybe you were friends with someone for one summer and they had a really great impact on your self-esteem and you never really saw them again, but you're really grateful for them. Or maybe you're grateful for your high school counselor who encouraged you to go into a certain program and they had a really big impact on your life. And you may not see these people anymore, but realistically, they cared about you. They wanted to invest their time in you, and many people care about how you do and they want to help you, and you are not going it alone. And when you start doing this daily and you kind of have this list of different people all the time, you build up this mental community in your background and you realize that you belong, people care about you, and that whether or not they are gratitude journaling, you are also having this impact on other people. So gratitude journaling basically creates a sense of abundance, creates this concept of there's opportunities everywhere, and creates a different state of mind. And on top of it, you feel like you have a community that you are a part of and that you are supporting as well. So very different way to start your day than turning on your phone immediately. The last part is doing a little bit of a different to-do list. And once you've done your morning routine, once you've kind of just gotten to it, you should be in a pretty motivated place and you should feel like you're ready to attack the day. And a lot of the time we have to-do lists and, there's 10 things on our to-do list, but realistically, 1 or 2 of those things is taking up 70 to 80% of our stress. And we end up leaving it till the end of the day because we think, I'm going to gain momentum by doing these smaller tasks first. But realistically, what happens is that in the back of our mind, we are stressing about those bigger items that probably have a larger impact on our long-term goals or on the project that we're working on. And realistically, if we get those things done first, we release our stress, and then we are in a better headspace to do everything else. So thing 1, get the most stressful thing, identify the most stressful thing on your to-do list, or the most meaningful or the most impactful, get it done first. Then, and this is very important, reward yourself with joy. And this is basically, you're training yourself like a little puppy learning how to sit. You say sit, you give the puppy a treat. You're training your brain to enjoy doing the most difficult thing first. And so you can do a happy dance in your kitchen if you really want to, because that, it releases kind of endorphins and makes you happy. You can play with your dog, you can play with your kids, go for a walk outside without your cell phone. You could drink a coffee and read a couple pages of that fiction book that you've been dying to read. You could take a bath at 2 p.m. because you're working from home. It doesn't really matter, but it should spark joy. And this is, again, you're training yourself to do the most difficult thing first and release stress for the rest of the day so that you can perform at your best for the rest of the day. All right, that is the journaling portion. Again, you are writing your priorities once, using them as a bookmark, reading them daily, writing out 3 things that you are grateful for, something simple and obvious, the opportunity to, and a specific person. And then lastly, you're identifying the most stressful or useful thing to do on your to-do list, doing it immediately, and then rewarding yourself with joy after. Last item on our list, the meditation. So I've been meditating since 2012. I've tried every single app. I've meditated for 45 minutes at one point and felt like I was in nirvana. And then the next day only had 10 minutes. And I thought, what's the point? I've done a 10-day meditation retreat. I've done it all. And I really enjoy meditating, but sometimes I don't have 20 minutes. I love meditating, and meditating for 20 minutes a day. Very cool study shows that meditating for 20 minutes a day for 6 weeks actually creates physical neuronal structures in your brain. They change the structures within your brain. So your prefrontal cortex, which is your rational decision-making center, it is the most evolved part of our brain, gains mass. And our amygdala, which is our emotional reactivity center, loses mass. And what happens when this is going on is that when we start meditating, our heart rate decreases, our blood pressure decreases, and even within 1 minute, blood flow flows away from the amygdala and towards the prefrontal cortex. So again, we are giving our body just a little bit of input so that we can operate on our best selves. And when I say the prefrontal cortex is the most evolved part of the brain, it's very obvious, for example, in the way that car insurance is given out and the pricing on car insurance. So if you're under 25, your car insurance is more because your prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until you are 25 years old. You can't make fully rational decisions. But if we are overtired, overstressed, underslept, our prefrontal cortex also doesn't function very well. And so it's really important just to give ourselves a little bit of input just to say, this is how I want to make decisions today. Because we are not just Homo sapiens. The most evolved being that we are right now is actually Homo sapiens sapiens, which is humans who think and know they think. And that knowing you think is what meditation is. So a lot of people are really hard on themselves and they say, I suck at meditation, I'm constantly thinking. Welcome to the club. You have a brain. That's what's going on. So when we meditate, meditation isn't being in this altered state. It is a verb. It is a way to get to an altered state, but it's an action that you're repeatedly taking. And what it is you're focused on the present moment, perhaps your breath, perhaps the sounds, perhaps you're just doing a body scan. And then you have a thought. And then you realize you have a thought. And where a lot of people don't realize in meditation, what they do is like, oh, I'm so bad, I'm thinking. And they berate themselves and then they try and go back to focusing on the present moment again. But really, you're breathing, you have a thought, you realize you have a thought, and then you say, good for me, I realized I had a thought. You pat yourself on the back and you go back to the breath. That is one repetition of meditation. That's actually what you're doing here. And just doing that is that rational brain saying, it's just a thought. You are allowed to have thoughts. Thoughts just happen within the brain. And it helps you regulate your emotions, it helps you respond better to other people, and it helps you pause before you act. And that's kind of one of the superpowers of meditation from a high performance standpoint. So at this point, I'm just going to take you through a brief 1-minute meditation. It's a body scan. And the body scan is so that you don't need a timer. You know that once you go through the scan, it's 1 minute. And if you feel like doing 2, awesome. But success is always at 1 minute. Whether you have 20 minutes or not, the habit of doing meditation daily is the most important part. So take a nice seat, sit nice and tall, and slowly close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and slowly let it out. And notice the way your chest expands and contracts. Now move your attention to your seat. What do your hips feel like against the chair? What does your spine feel like stacked on top of the hips? Move your attention to your feet. What does the texture of the floor feel like beneath the sole of your foot? What is the temperature of your toes like? Take one more nice inhale into your chest. Let your shoulders relax. And slowly, when you're ready, open your eyes. So that was 1 minute. And one of my favorite ways to hack into doing this daily is just make sure that you do it at the same time every day. And, I don't mean like 8:06 or something. Maybe you take a cold shower and then you wrap yourself in a towel and you sit on the edge of your tub, and that's where you take your 1 minute of meditation. Maybe you're jonesing for your coffee and you make your coffee, you take your first sip, you hold it in your hands, and you do your 1 minute meditation there. Or maybe you put a little sticky note in your laptop and it just says meditate 1 minute before work. And it's just a nice little reminder that you're always doing it at the same time, the same place, and it becomes a habit. So that is everything I have for you today. Thank you for joining me. Please refer to the cheat sheet for little how-tos, little hacks, links to a lot of this information. And I hope you enjoyed today's session. Good luck with your first morning routine tomorrow. And I hope it helps you as much as it has helped me.